Hey folks, so this is Shetz, and today we're going to do synthetic division. I'll try to keep this video short, but let's think back to a middle school problem. Just some terminology here. Here's our dividend, and then what we're dividing by is our divisor. And when we do that, we get an answer called the quotient. Our dividend goes right here, and our divisor goes on the outside. So if we take a look at our number, we're going to take 125 and we're going to divide it by 3. So 125 would be our dividend and our 3 is our divisor. Well, if you recall, does 3 go into 1? No. So does 3 go into 12? Yes, 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12. We subtract, draw a line. We get a 0. We bring down our next number of 5. Does 3 go into 5? Yes, 1 time. And we draw our line and subtract, and notice we get a 2 as a remainder. Now, back in middle school, maybe your teacher, let you write an R2 up there, so our answer would be 41 R2. Well, a more proper way would be our quotient. What did we do with this remainder? We always took this remainder and put it over our divisor. So our answer would be 41 2/3. So remember that, because we're going to be doing that. Your remainder right here goes over what we were dividing by. All right, so let's take a look at this problem here. And one thing we have to make sure that we do is make sure that these are in descending order. Here we have a x to the third, 2, 1, and 0. That's great. That's our dividend. We're going to write those numbers down, these leading coefficients. Write them all down. And here's our divisor. We always set that equal to 0, add 2 to both sides, and notice right here, that's what we're going to be dividing by, a 2. So whenever you do this, and another shortcut is you'd always just take the opposite of this and put it over that. Opposite of this and put it over that. That's what's going to go in this little box right here. All right, well, when you synthetically divide, let me just move this screen down a bit. This first number, I don't care what it is, it always gets brought down. Now we have a series of multiply and then add. 6 times 2 is 12. We add, we get -7. So we multiply and then put our answer here and add straight down. -7 times 2 is -14. We add, we get a 2. 2 times 2 is 4. And notice, we have a remainder of 0. That means that a 2 is the root. This divisor went into this dividend evenly because we had a remainder of 0. So if you want to look at the rest of the work down here, but the x minus 2 went into our dividend evenly. 2 is a root. So because this was an x cubed and we were dividing by this x up here, this drops by 1. We get an x squared, a -7x, and then a +2. So that we would have to then try to factor. But this is our quotient with a remainder of 0. Be very careful. That's our quotient and the answer to a division problem. If you want to look at the rest of the work, you can. And by the way, this 6x squared minus 7x plus 2 will factor. Our idea is get it down to a quadratic, and then we know how to factor quadratics. All right, let's go to our next problem. Again, notice what's happening here. We have to make sure it's in descending order. 4, 3. It doesn't have an x cubed, so we have to use a 0x cubed. And notice the placeholder right there. Then we have our -10, a -2, and then our 4. What are we dividing by? A -3. And again, this first 1 is always brought down. 1 times -3 is -3. We add, we get -3. -3 times -3 is 9. You get -1. -1 times -3 is 3. We add, we get a 1. 1 times -3 is -3. We add straight down and we get a 1. Notice this, there's our quotient. All of this is our quotient. This is the remainder right there in the box, a 1, and that goes over what we were dividing by. And you can see it right here. All right, good. Now, factored form is a little different. Notice what it says. Divisor, quotient, then just tack on your remainder at the end. So look at this right here, our quotient, and look at this right here, plus 1 at the end. Make sure you know the difference between the factored form as well as the quotient. I will be asking you that on the assessment. All right, so why don't we just try these two problems from homework? Make sure this is in first descending order, which it is. We have a 2, a -3, an 8, and a -7. And what's going to go in our box out here on the left? We just take the opposite of that, put it over that, we get a 2. We draw our line. Again, the first number always comes down. 2 times 2 is 4. Now we're going to add, we get a 1. 1 times 2 is 2. We get a 10. 10 times 2 is 20. And we're going to get a 13. That is our remainder. So, our quotient, since this was an x cubed, this divided by this x, this becomes an x squared, an x, and a 10. So here's my quotient. We have a 2x squared plus x plus 10. Then this remainder goes over what we were dividing by. Since that is a positive 13, we put a plus 13 over x minus 2. Great. Factored form. Well, it's what we were dividing by, the x minus 2. Our quotient, which happens to be 2x squared plus x plus 10. And now you just add on the 13 at the end. So make sure you know the difference between the quotient and the factored form. Let's do the next one. Notice what happens here. Make sure it's in descending order. We're missing a 0x squared and a 0x, and then there's my constant. All right, so we have a 1, a 0 for the x squared, a 0 for the x, then my minus 8. And what goes in our box here, take the opposite of this, put it over that, and we get a 2. We draw our line. First number, no matter what it is, always gets brought down. 1 times 2 is 2. We add, we get a 2. 2 times 2 is 4. We add, we bring it straight down. 4 times 2 is 8. Notice, we do get a remainder of 0. Therefore, this went into our dividend nicely, evenly. Because this was x cubed, this now is x squared and x. All right, so that is our quotient of 1x squared plus 2x plus 4, remainder of 0. Factored form, we put down our divisor, x minus 2, then our quotient, x squared plus 2x plus 4. There you go, folks. Again, please make sure that in your quotient, your remainder goes over what we were dividing by. That's your quotient. When you do your factored form, the remainder just gets tacked on at the very end. All right, there you go, folks. Have a great day.